And it doesn't really matter whether you're Democrat or Republican. And so many people contact me through Messenger. Oh, hey, Brian, I've been thinking about you a lot. I'm going to wave at you because I have been thinking about you so much. Haven't seen you post or anything, so I hope you're hiding out and are keeping safe. But I have really kept Family Forward sort of politically neutral. When we go to D.C., we talk to both sides of the table. As you know, the Family First Project, or the Families First Act, was introduced both on the Democrat and the Republican side. And so what we really want to do with child welfare reform is to recreate the whole system, because foster care does not work. And, I have gone around and I make comments about, excuse me, I make comments about DCS taking Queen's Hospital dying with corona. Yeah, thank you, Sarah. I make, when I make pleadings or when I do lives, and I get made fun of all the time in the Tennessee court system when I say they take kids for money, and they all laugh. I mean, judges even, they don't take kids for money. That's ridiculous that they would take kids for money. I've had state legislators tell me that. I've had judges tell me that. I've had DCS attorneys tell me that. Well, here's the deal. I'm just going to say it one more time because I know the trolls get all over our page now. But if DCS, if CPS does not take children, they have no money, period. Title 4E money is about taking children, period. Okay. So let's just stop, trying to make excuses for that, because that's what that is. Title 4E is about taking children. Now, what happens to those children? So this is where we get into the serious stuff. We know, without a shadow of a doubt, we know that the foster care system does not work. Okay, we know it doesn't work. Look at the number of people in prisons. Look at the children in group homes and what happens to the children in group homes. Look at the runaway. I mean, look at the in-home counseling. I've had teenagers sexually solicited by the in-home therapist in Tennessee. A case I really wanted to bring out, but I felt so bad for the victim, and the victim was so damaged and shattered that we couldn't really get it out as a case. But I mean, I had the hard evidence. I had text messages where he just flat out was soliciting her. And I mean, that is just crazy. And there's so much stuff like that I can't do anything with. The group homes in Tennessee, how horrible they are. The group home, I think it was Memphis, that a child ran away, and they've had several runaways, like 4 different runaways. The foster homes, I mean, these foster homes, they are nothing special, baby. I mean, if the parents are having trouble, with their children or need help with their children, very rarely are these foster homes the panacea of parenthood. They have no special training. A lot of times, DCS, if a child really is damaged and comes from a home or an environment where they really were sexually assaulted and physically abused, and they're a damaged child, these foster parents are not equipped to handle that, and DCS doesn't provide any ongoing support. So Mary, I would really like a global reset. I don't know what all's going on. I have been crying out that children are stolen, taken, hidden, sold, transferred, abused, etc., etc. And, we know that finally, this past year, that NCMEC admitted that of the children that were the victims of child sexual abuse, that 60% of them come from the CPS system. We know it doesn't work. We know the prison system doesn't work. They come from foster care. We know that they don't get the right mental health treatment if they do need services. And one of the things about Family Forward, and we have over 14,000 members, and a lot of times people will tell their story there, and that's very, very important. And I hope as members of the Family Forward Project. I hope you sit and read their stories because it's very, very telling. And there's several themes that come through. One of them is this theme of just the absolute hopelessness and helplessness of when you are going through a child welfare case, because they're not there to help you. They're there to persecute you and prosecute you. So, hey, Jamie, I've heard about what's going on with you, so I hope you're feeling a little bit better too. But the situation, yeah, thank you, Jamie. Yep, you too. I hope you're feeling better. The situation, reading about people's that emotional trauma that they go through and just trying to deal with the system. The other thing is somebody posted about really how a foster parent had reached out through him through social media and was criticizing the bio parent and really coming down on him about how damaged their children were. And yet this bio parent was trying to explain that there were a lot of things that were going on with her family. There was a lot of history of alcoholism. There were histories of abuse. There was generational abuse that never gets resolved. And so, yeah, the children that are in those situations are desperately need help. But just taking them out of one home and putting them in the homes of strangers is not the answer. It's not the answer. And and I'm going to talk, and I have permission to talk about this, but you all know that I've worked with Wendy Hancock for going on 2 years now, and how we fought the system. And it had to do with her child who had gotten in a rural county in Tennessee, with a pretty substantial population, but still what I would consider a rural county. Her child, as a young teenager, had gotten involved in drugs, and how she reached out and she tried to help, and there were no resources, and she had in-home counseling and she had in-home services. And she was having trouble. She's getting through and getting services. And then as he got older, he got mixed up with kids that were doing more than just smoking marijuana. I mean, they're selling marijuana, then they're selling pills, and then they've got cocaine, and then they have guns, and it just escalates over and over and over and over and over. And they came into her life and they took him and her 12-year-old daughter, claiming that she was the drug dealer, when it all came out of what her son said. And we fought and we fought, and we got her children returned, and we filed a federal lawsuit, and now we're fighting dismissal. And, we had everything in that case. We had the DCS not doing a proper investigation. We had DCS secretly running off to another county to get an ex parte order. We had a law enforcement who took a cell phone that had tons of evidence on it related to the drug trafficking in that county, and they withheld it from us. And we now know, because we finally got the phone, and it has all kinds of evidence about the drug trafficking that had been going on in that county, and how different people are involved in that drug trafficking, and nobody wants to clean it up. But they withheld her children for a year and did severe damage to her daughter. Her daughter will never be the same. She lost a whole year of her life. She became a teenager in foster care. And her whole relationship with her mom, which had been very, very close, was changed and altered. And you can't undo that. You can't undo it. And now, he's back in that same position that he was, because they didn't get him the treatment that he needed. Because you know why? They put him in foster care, and because they wanted to blame the mom, they said, oh, well, he's not using now, so he's okay. He's not the problem, mom is. And yet mom had been trying to get him patient treatment for nearly a year, which was denied and ignored, although it was recommended. So there is no benefit. I've never ever in 25 years seen a case where DCS has removed children, got the proper treatment for everybody, kept that family stabilized during the treatment process, and return the children. You know what DCS does? I mean, for those of you who don't have to deal with us on a personal basis, all they have to do is give parents 4 hours a month of visitation. 4 hours a month. Can you imagine, those of you who've never been through it, being able to see your children 4 hours a month, which is either by an hour four times a month, or 2 hours twice a month supervised. under the eyes of somebody else. That's what they do. And they go, well, that's all we have to do. And, that is not an agency. That is a service agency. Yeah. So we're fighting this horrible system, and I've been talking about it over and over and over and over, and I've been in D.C., and I've been in state legislators, I've talked to state legislators, and I've filed all these appeals, and I've raised constitutional issues, and I've taken to federal court, and it's like, what is going on? I've done postcards to POTUS, and you've all seen my postcards. We have got to crack the egg. We've got to crack the egg. So is part of COVID a rescue of children who are child trafficked? I'm just going to say, I think it is. People are going to call me crazy, and I think there's a lot of things, a lot of damage that have been done to children by people in power. Now, I'm not just saying that because I'm just pulling that out of my back pocket, okay? I have studied historically many incidents of children being abused through the Boys Town in Nebraska, okay, through the orphanages in Ireland, through the house in England. What do they call that house? I can't remember off the top of my head, but I have a whole file on my phone. I probably shouldn't say this. Some weird force will probably crash my phone. But I have files on my phone of all these stories from Brussels, from South Africa, from Australia, from Thailand, from Nebraska, from California, from New York, okay? I have all these stories that over the past 40 years where there has been bust after bust after bust of organized child trafficking and sex abuse. Organized. A business. Okay, dollars. So we know it's there. And so many times we have not done anything until it's thrown right in our laps. It's thrown right in our laps. I mean, look at these horrible things that happen. I mean, y'all remember those 3 girls in Ohio. I mean, this story never leaves my mind. But the 3 girls in Ohio that got kidnapped by that man in his house and were kept there for like 10 years. One had a baby, another one, he'd raped them and wouldn't let them out of the house. And do you not think their families were looking for them? Were looking for them for 10 years? And that poor girl, that haunting phone call when she finally escapes through the front screen door and calls the police. And her name is Amanda. I can't remember her last name. I'm sorry. But she's like, this is Amanda. I've been lost for 10 years. I've been stolen for 10 years. And there's others in the house. They need help. I mean, why wasn't that town turned upside down 10 years prior? There are so many children that are missing. There are children, and I go and I talk about foster care, and I tell this story, and I tell people this is so frightening to me. So DCS takes children, and if they take 4 children from a home, not only do they get a stipend every month for those children, but they get adoption bonus money. And then they adopt those people out who continue to get a stipend until those children are 18 years old. But I said, nobody ever follows up. Once they're put in those adoptive homes, nobody ever follows up. They could be selling those kids. They could be trafficking those kids. Nobody knows, and still getting a stipend on those children. Nobody knows. They just disappear sometimes. And they're rehomed. I mean, I have to tell you, there's a whole Facebook group called Second Chance Adoption, where children who are adopted, the adoptive parents are like, I thought I wanted to adopt you, but I don't really, so we need a new home for you. And I have to say, as an attorney, I have helped a couple of those displaced adoptions. Now, and people are like, why would you do that? Because I'm not going to not help a kid that's in a bad placement with an adoptive family. So it is so not working. It's so not working. And we really need to turn our focus on family rehabilitation. One of my friends through Family Forward is an attorney up in Massachusetts, and she is politically opposite of what I am. And so we chat or we text or we send messages about our cases, and we were talking about just kind of where we are. And, one of the things that I said is, our college campuses, as far as I'm concerned, are archaic. Smart people can stay, can live, can get online, can get an education, and can get a job in their field and work. We need to turn our college campuses into functional rehabilitation facilities that provide not only substance abuse rehabilitation, but relationship rehabilitation for domestic violence, for job skills training, real job skills training, like learning to use a computer, learning word processing, learning how to work in a factory. We need to change the whole focus of our campuses. What do they do for us? What do they do? And they've become so liberal, so many of them. And some of our college campuses are owned by the Chinese. You just need to look that up. You just need to Google, do the Chinese own any of our colleges? And you'll find they do. So that is just an archaic system. We could probably take half the college campuses in the U.S. and turn them into rehabilitation centers for families. So that's just one of my theories. Now let me talk about a couple things I want to do from a Seventh Circuit that would open DCS workers to federal policy. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit, second chance, a part of why Alan quit talking to me and try. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about that for a minute, Patty, because there was actually I think it was Arkansas or Oklahoma, in one of those states, there was a state rep that had kids that rehomed them after he got them. And that became quite a scandal. And yet they don't even want to talk about it. They're like, the narrative around adoption has become so much like, I'm just going to compare it to pets, okay? Because they really treat it like pet rehoming, and they don't even think about the kids. I mean, the guardian ad litems, the whole best interest of the child. It's like, how could you ever walk into a premise that the best interest of a child was to abruptly interfere with their relationship of the person in their life from which they get the most security? How could it ever be in the best interest of a child to abruptly interfere with that relationship? I mean, we know it now. We see it. I mean, finally, ACEs and when they were taking immigrant children away at the border, suddenly all the left-wing people in universities were talking about how much damage that does for that abrupt interference. So how could a guardian ad litem that should be their first premise, and that's not. And I'm going to tell you just in a few minutes about something that happened last week, but it's like, that has always quizzed me. It always quizzed me. So that should always be the first premise. Secondly, a guardian ad litem, if they don't agree with a child, what a child wants to do, which is 90% of the child wants to maintain that relationship with their parents 90% of the time. And I'm going to tell you, where do I come up with that 90%? Because in the state's own stats, and even the federal stats, it shows that 80% of the children are removed for neglect. Now, neglect is not good, okay? Neglect can be a filthy house, missing school, not getting medical treatment, okay? Neglect is not necessarily good, and there are parents who could do better, there is no doubt, but it is not physical or sexual abuse. So I'm telling you, 90% of the time, children would rather stay at home. And that was what the Family First Act was intended to do. The Family First Act, yeah, Tressie, and I know as far as grandparents and not placing with family, that's just like, I could just go on and on about that. So then you have the court. What the court is supposed to do is appoint an attorney ad litem for the child if the guardian ad litem and what the child wants is not the same. Okay? That's what the law is. And if you read the ABA guidelines, they actually are finally putting more emphasis on the child's attorney, which is the child's constitutional attorney. That is the attorney to protect the family integrity rights and the child's right to have their voice heard, not what the guardian ad litem thinks the child should have, which is basically what we have all the time, over and over and over. Drives me crazy. So I wanted to talk about that just a minute, because the attorney ad litem and guardian ad litem are two different things. Okay, you have to understand that. And part of the purpose of the Family Forward Project is to educate you on the system and what happens in the system. And the court always appoints a guardian ad litem, like right off the bat, right? And yet they won't appoint an attorney ad litem unless what the child wants and what the guardian wants is different. And so you have, and people don't know to ask. They don't know to ask. All right? So you're going to ask. You're going to ask. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about this week specifically. Hang on here. Oh, before I talk about that, I'm going to talk about real fast about a case. I posted about this, but it's called Shulkers v. Kammer, and it just came out in the Sixth Circuit Court. We have to go through the circuit courts to just develop little bitty tiny aspects of law to protect your rights over and over. Criminals have so much more protection than parents do because we've not been able to facilitate seeking those rights like criminals have. And you know why? I'll just tell you. Because criminals in every prison, there is, what if a child is too young to have a different opinion? Yeah, Julie, that's a really good question. You know what? I'm going to talk about that in just a minute, so hang on, because I'm going to talk about a 6-year-old, okay? So, and I'm sorry, I get distracted from the things here and I lose track. But anyway, Shulkers v. Kammer. So, we have to go through the courts, and I'm in the Sixth Circuit Court, which is Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, and Michigan. And we have to just eke out little bits of rights because we don't have very well established rights. So what I was saying is, do you know why prisoners have more rights? Because in every prison they have a law library and they have a law clerk who's paid for by the taxpayers, who goes in and helps with forms and constitutional rights and habeas and post-conviction relief. Okay, I'm telling you, prisoners have more rights and more resources than parents, okay? Prisoners have more rights and resources than parents. If you're in prison, you get a law librarian, a law clerk. You get educated on a habeas corpus. You get educated on post-conviction relief. You get educated on civil rights under 1983. Parents walk into a freaking minefield. Okay? All right, so Shulkers v. Kammer came out in the Sixth Circuit Court. They have finally said for the Sixth Circuit, this is so important, that going into school to interview your child without permission or consent is a seizure under the Fourth Amendment. Okay? It is a seizure under the Fourth Amendment. Now, that's as far as they went, but let me tell you what that opens up. If you are seized under the Fourth Amendment or they search and seizure, they come in your house, they look in your car, they can do that if they have consent. So this was not tested in this case, but you have to say, what is consent? So can a 6-year-old consent to a school to interrogation? Can a 12-year-old consent to an in-school interrogation? And this goes for seizure of a cell phone. In Wendy's case, the court said, they didn't seize the phone from her phone, by the way. They seized it from her son, okay? This phone that had tons of evidence on it about criminal activity, drug dealing, which they seized from her son and withheld without a warrant for 10 months. The court says, she didn't claim a right for her son, so they didn't seize it from her. Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to appeal that issue. It just drives me crazy. But Shulkers v. Kammer now says, and we've got to inform Tennessee, and I'm going to, since I know they are hacking and watching videos all the time, even downloading them, giving them to the DA, whatever, right? that it is a Fourth Amendment seizure when you take a child out of a class and you seize that child for an interrogation. Oh, okay. Oh, sure, Ted. Of course. Send me a message. Message me. My phone was seized. Okay. All right. Now, I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to wrap up. Thank you all for being with me. I'm going to talk about this week. So this week, I'm a little COVID paranoid. I'm just going to admit it. I'm in an age bracket that's highly affected, okay, whether or not y'all believe those stats or not. And I'm a cancer survivor, which means I have a shot up immune system because I've been totally poisoned with chemo, and I was radiated for 4 weeks every day, radiated top half of my body. So I think I probably have a little immune liability. So I'm a little freaked about it, right? My office is very small. I talk to my staff and I'm like, what do we do? And like, we're such a small office. We are trying to work and just still kind of keep our distance. But I keep my distance in other places. So I came out to the country to give me some more distance. But I got a court order on April the 2nd. Now April the 2nd was when Governor Lee in Tennessee said that people need to stay home. He gave basically a stay-at-home order except for what he calls essential businesses. The Tennessee Supreme Court had entered an order that basically said in-person should only be by emergency only. And then I get a court order from Williamson County Sharon Judge Guffey saying that the parents and their attorneys had to personally appear on Friday. I was not happy. And then the governor's thing comes out, and I thought, surely they'll change that. This is not an emergency. This is a non-emergency. And so I did a live on Friday morning in front of the court. And so the guardian ad litem I see and the other attorney go walking in behind me. Well, apparently they go talk to Judge Guffey, because the first thing she says on the bench when she comes out is, I just want to remind everybody that these are confidential proceedings and they are not to be discussed on social media or with the press or otherwise. Okay? Now, I'm just going to lay this out there. What the rules are is Juvenile Court Procedure, Rule 114, says they're not open to the public. Okay? That the proceedings are not open to the public. 37-1-153 says that the records are not available for public inspection. All right. There is no law that says that parents cannot share their story. There's no law. So here we go. Another gag order. All right. Now, however, of course, I want to protect mom and her child. So I'm not going to tell you the facts of the case, but I'm going to tell you what happened because there's going to be complaints filed. Number one, I'm going to talk about the CPS investigator. Not going to give her name. I'm not going to tell you exactly what she did. I think it'd be more beneficial for you and for DCS to know how incompetent their CPS investigator is. But I'm just going to tell you the classification of screw-ups, okay? So number one, this was not an emergency. They had not emergency removed the child, but they wanted to remove the child from the mother. And so they bring in a CPS investigator. Now, these CPS investigators are always on a WebEx, right? I have to appear personally, but she's on WebEx. So these CPS investigators are as cocky as hell, okay? When the DCS attorney is letting them like spew all their probable cause hearsay, because all of it's hearsay, basically. And she's just puking it out there about the detective told her this, and the medical record said this, and mom must be doing this, and blah, 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 blah. And she's all cocky about it, and, people must be crazy, and all that stuff. So, cross-examination. Now, usually, attorneys do nothing. Usually the parents' attorneys sit there and go, oh my gosh, this is horrible. Oh my gosh, we need to do what DCS does. This is a horrible thing. Okay? No. We need some attorneys with some freaking balls to stand up and start practicing law in these courtrooms. Yeah, peacocks, right. And they don't even have their freaking tail feathers up, Mary. They just are, they're just like squirrels, basically. They sit there like chewing on a nut, and if anybody says boo to them, they like freaking scatter, like, okay. So I start doing a cross-examination of the investigator, who, first of all, when she started this investigation, had only been working for DCS about a year. Okay, so she's got about a year experience. Her background is in, what did she say? I can't even remember. I don't know. It was not social work. It was like criminal justice and something. Okay, so I asked her about her training, and she goes, well, we have training all the time, and blah blah blah. I said, so, do you know the standard in the state of Tennessee is 40 hours of very specific 40 hours of very specific training on forensically interviewing a child who is the alleged victim of sexual abuse before you even talk to a child. And then you have to work under supervision. She said no. But she admitted that she went into the school, she pulled the child out of class, a child who has only seen her one other time 5 months prior, and interrogated the child about sexual abuse. Yeah, and took a detective in there. And I said, well, did the detective know the child? And she's like, I don't know. Okay? Totally incompetent. Totally incompetent. So that, and then part of it had to do with another part of an investigation had to do with reviewing security videos from a retail store. I said, well, again, because I can't tell the details of the case, I'm not going to tell you what retail store. I'm not going to tell you what detective. I'm not going to tell you the name of the caseworker. But I'm going to tell you that withholding evidence is inappropriate. And she had in her possession a copy of the video file of the security. And instead of viewing it herself, because it wouldn't play on her state-owned equipment, she relied upon what the detective told her. And did not tell the mother that she could view the video, did not tell the mother she could have a copy of the video to review with her attorney. Withholding evidence. So you have incompetent training, withholding evidence. Yeah. Now, mother's a foreigner. I have difficulty talking to her. Did the DCS investigator, CPSI they call him, did she use an interpreter when she interrogated the mother? No. Nope, never did. Then she claims, well, mother must be talking to the child because mother would call me and tell me more information that the child would say. As well, how do you know that the child didn't spontaneously tell her something and she just wanted to make sure you know that? And she said, I don't know that. And her whole demeanor changed during cross-examination. Whole demeanor changed. So anyway, at the close of the proceeding, they didn't remove the child, which is what I told them before. They didn't need to remove the child. They just needed certain things to happen, which I had already recommended and already agreed to. Okay? So, I could say a few more things. I'm trying to not give the specific identity, but I just want to let you know what type of incompetence we have to deal with every single freaking time. Every time, right? Just every time. Oh, here's another one. I have to add this. The DCS CPSI, Child Protective Services Investigator, signed under oath the petition. So when I asked her a question about something that was in the petition, she said, I don't know. And I said, well, did you read the petition before you signed it? And she goes, yeah, but I didn't, it wasn't all my information. Part of it was the information that the DCS attorney put in there. So you signed it under oath, and you can't even tell me for certain what's in the petition. Yeah, more incompetence. So okay, hey, Lori, y'all, thank you so much for sitting with me for a little bit. I don't know. I wanted to let you know we're still alive and well and working through these issues. I've got some pretty heavy briefs. I have to finish up this one on a medical kidnap case, federal. I've got to file a notice of appeal and file that brief. So I'm trying to use my COVID quarantine time productively. Honestly, I'd like to just kind of stay in bed and lay in bed for a few days, but I'm not doing that, of course. But I am spending time with grandkids and taking walks and, reading with them and doing those other mama things, grandma things. So, all right. So, y'all share this. I'm going to stop here. I don't want to get them too long because I like to upload these then to YouTube, because that's the way a lot of people find us, is they find us through the YouTube postings. So I'm going to say bye-bye and share this. Let's pass it around a bit, and we will talk again soon. Love you all. Keep your spirits. Something's going on in this world. We are living in a movie right now. Never in my life have I been through this type of a situation. I mean, the closest thing I can think of is when I was 8 years old and Kennedy got shot, and then Ruby and Oswald, and I was just freaking child at the time, and it was so surreal. So this is where we are, and we're going to make it, and we're going to support each other, and we're going to stick through this, and we're going to get children home. We're going to do that. Okay, so keep doing it. Do it, press it, get educated, understand, know what's going on. Don't let go. If your kids are taken, grandkids are taken, keep searching them on the internet. Just dig in there, just find them and communicate with them. They have a right to know. Okay, they have a right to know. All right, I'm going to sign off now. I love y'all very much. Ciao.